Go to paint. Okay. Okay. First of all, this is our code. Let me. So this is our GitHub. Instead of blue, we can write in black. So this is our GitHub code, right? In which our application code are going to be reside, right? We can take any application, like we can take the simple Apache web application in which we are going to deploy the index.html file, right? Means our front end. Static, what is difference between the static website and dynamic website?
A static
So
website is static
static
code,
webs
doesn't change.
Yeah, static website
Dynamic.
is basically a website which is a single page website, and there is no any extra feature like a form, like a e-commerce website, like a something else, right? So in a static website there is a single page and where the multiple modules are added, right? But in the dynamic one, the users data are change every time, right? Like if we can go to some website which offers purchasing, right? So in which the user data are changes dynamically, and we have to store the user data in our some database, right? So this is the dynamic one. So
Yeah.
for this tutorial, we are going to deploy a static website, right? So we must put a static website code in our GitHub repository, right? In GitHub code. And after this is basically which stage? This is basically our source stage, right? Let me draw this. So this is our source stage, right? Where our code is located, right? Once we push the code into the GitHub repository, this GitHub repository automatically fetch this code, right? And after fetching the code, we have a next stage. Let me copy this whole. Sorry. So this is our next stage, which is going to be a deploy stage, right? Let me write there. Deploy. Right? So this is our deploy stage in which our code are going to be deployed. And if you remember, our code is deployed at where?
Deployed to the GitHub.
No. Deploying means your application code are deployed somewhere, right? Do you remember your application code are deployed at where? So basically in GitHub, basically we push our code, right? This
Yes.
is GitHub is basically the version control system that store the version of our code, right? And after pushing the code into the GitHub, we need to deploy our code in at somewhere, right? Can you tell me that what does it mean by at somewhere? For example, the Facebook application code are deployed at where?
They're deployed
Every
to
application
face.
code are
I mean,
deployed somewhere.
to the internet.
No.
What?
Remember that every application or every website code are deployed at some server, right?
Oh,
Yeah.
well, a server
For
is,
yeah,
I guess, yeah.
machine. Server is a machine in which you are going to deploy your code, right? For example, if you have any website which you see on the web or Google are deployed in some hosting, right? Hosting means in backend they are used some servers to host your website, right? So
Mm,
whenever you want to host your website, host your application, you have to you have to make an instance, you have to make a server to deploy your code in it, right? So
right,
in basically after pushing the code on the GitHub, we are going to deploy our code on the server, right? And in
right.
AWS case, if you remember, we called the server as
The EC2 instance
that's right. So we are going to deploy our GitHub repository code into the EC2 instance,
instance.
right? Once our code are going to be deployed in that EC2 instance, then we are going to able or use our code or see our code into the web, right? So
Mm,
once it going to be reside in my EC2 instance, then my application are going to be visible on the web, right? But my web application is available at what DNS or we can say what domain name, right? So let's suppose whenever you see some websites, for example, facebook.com, right? So it is accessible through this DNS, right? Which we call the domain name, right? Like facebook.com, or we can say any website like amazon.com, right? So every website hosted on anywhere are seen through the web by using the domain name, right?
mm,
So first of all, we need to deploy our code into some server, right? And if our server is a public server, then we can easily access our application by using this EC2 instance public IP, right? Because our instances are public. So whenever when we going to deploy our code in that EC2 instance, we can access our application by using this EC2 instance public IP, right? Because public IP are accessible for the everyone or through the internet, right? So
mm.
we can access this application by using EC2 instance, right? So everything is going to be work by using the code pipeline, right? So we are going to deploy the two stages in our pipeline. First one is source and second one is deploy, right? So whenever we make some changes in the code, it automatically fetched by the GitHub, and once it fetched by the GitHub, it automatically gives to the source stage, and after the source stage, it automatically deploy our code into the EC2 instance, right?
Yeah.
So basically, this is our user, right? We do this. So this is basically the user, and whenever we whenever the user push some code into the GitHub repository, it automatically fetched by the source stage. And once it fetched, then this code is going to be deployed into some EC2 instance, right? So these three stages or these three steps are going to be automated by using the AWS code pipeline, right? So let's see by doing demo how
So
we
is
can
this
do.
basically what you're
Yeah.
describing is the CDCI pipeline right here, where
Yes. So
code is
basically this is
automatically integrated and deployed?
yes, automatically integrated and deployed, and we are able to access our application by using the EC2 instance public IP, right? So let me write here public.
And this is basically the main point of this is that we could
Yeah,
do all this and add things, to remove things, etc., make changes without
without any manual
interrupting
effort. Our code
correctly.
is automatically fetched and our code is automatically deployed, right? So when we can check and we can access our application by using EC2 instance public IP, right? We can copy the EC2 instance public IP and paste into our web. Then we are able to access our application, right? So whenever we want to make some changes in our code, we can we after we making the changes, we just need to push our changes, right? And after pushing, the pipeline automatically run and trigger our code and automatically deploy into the instance, and we can verify it by using the EC2 instance public IP, right? So let's do demo. The things are going to be more clear, right?
Mm.
So first of all, if you can see this diagram, we need a GitHub repository, right?
Yeah.
And in which we have to push our application code in, right? So first of all, we need to create a GitHub repository. We already make previous repository, I think, with the name of GitHub DevOps Rafi, right? So we can use this repository for this demo, right? Okay, let me go to the repository which we already created in our previous lectures. No repository, and where my repository? Yeah, this one, right? So do you remember this repository? This is the same repository which we created, I think, in our first lecture, right? DevOps
Yes.
Rafi training. So let's open this repository in command prompt, right? So now I am in the repository, right? So if I want to check how many branches in this repository, I can check it by using the command git branch, right? So there are three branches in it: dev, main, and WordPress codes, and right. So we are going to use, you can use any branch to deploy your code. So currently we are in at what branch? Can you please tell me?
Um, Currently we are in the development branch.
Yes, dev branch, right?
Yes.
So in dev branch, if you can see this repository, there is nothing here, right? So what we are going to do, we are going to uh, paste some our application, demo application code in this branch, right? So I already have an application with the name of this Linux repo. Let me open a new window. So this is the simple application code, a static website code, right? If I am going to open this index HTML file, so it give you a simple application code, right? So this is the simple index.html file, which we are going to deploy on our EC2 instance using the AWS code deploy, right? So and after that we have other files like a script. In script we have three type of the command: install dependencies for the application, and start server and stop server means we need some Apache server to host our website, right? So whenever you want to deploy your website, you need some server, right? So in which you deploy our application. And there is a one license agreement, and this is the app spec file, which is really important file that we can use or tell our EC2 instance how to deploy our application, right? So first of all, it says you have to deploy this index.html file in our EC2 instance, and this is the destination path where basically our website application host, right? So whenever you use the Apache web server, so basically you put this index.html file at this path var www.html, right? And after that we have some hooks means there is some dependencies that we need to be installed before the start the server, right? So before installing we need to install some dependencies, and these dependencies are come from this file. If you go to the script, and here this is install.dependency file where our some dependencies. So basically this is simply install the HTTP server on my EC2 instance. Do you know what is the HTTP server? So basically this is the Apache website, right? So first of all, it installed the Apache web server on my EC2 instance. And after that, he says, after the installing, you need to start yourself, right? And whenever we want to stop our application, we can use the stop server. And stop server is basically this one. So this is basically a simple command that going to be run on EC2 instance to start the server, start the Apache server, and stop the Apache server, right? So you don't need to worry about it if you don't understand this code. So this is basically your web application code. It may be something like in Python, it may be something like any language. Currently, we are just need to this code to deploy this code into our um, AWS EC2 instance by using the AWS code pipeline, right? So I am going to copy this code. Just copy this code from here and paste this code into your GitHub repository, right? So I am going to just paste it here, right? So this is my simple application code files which I put in my GitHub repository, right?
Yep.
And when I paste this my application code into the GitHub repository, we need to push here, right? And how we
Yep.
can push our code? First of all, we need to write what
Push,
command?
push.
No, not a directly push. If you
Uh,
remember, whenever we
Git.
push our local code into the GitHub repository, we need to, if you go to your GitHub repository, let me go to my GitHub repository. Go to repositories, and this is my repository. And if you go to the dev branch, there is nothing here, right? Only the README file is located here, right? So currently my code is located in my local machine, right? This create folder and this all this file, right? I want to push this code into my main web repository. Then how I can do it? So first of all, you need to write, come on, which command? Git, git
Hold on 1 second. See if I can.
add, right? So whenever we want to push our code from local to the GitHub account, we need to write the three commands. First of all, git add command, and then we need to write git commit command, and lastly, we need to write the git push command, right? So
Right.
first of all, we are going to write the git add command. And after that, we need to write git commit command, right? And git commit -m, and -m means write some message, meaningful message for it, right? So we can say this is our application code, right? And after that, you just need to write the git push command to push your local code into the GitHub repository, right? So let's refresh it. I am in the
Git
dashboard.
add, then git commit, and then git push are the three commands
Yes,
in that
yes.
order.
Yes, so let's refresh this to check our code is located here too. Yes, now our code is currently in my GitHub repository, right? So we just completed, if we can go to this, right? So we just completed this step. We push our code into the GitHub repository, right? Now, now after pushing the GitHub repository and before making the code pipeline, we need some server, right? In which we are going to deploy our code, right? So we need to create a EC2 instance. And if you remember, we already know how to create an EC2 instance on AWS. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
Yeah, so first of all, we need to go the AWS account. So I am going to use this account. And what are the prereqs to create an EC2 instance? Do you remember?
Um, Prerequisites to creating an EC2 instance.
So how we can create an EC2 instance? First of all, you
You
go
have
to
to
the
have a
EC2
server.
service. First of all, you have to go EC2 service, and in the dashboard, you have to go the instances, right?
Mhm.
Okay, and now we have to create an instance according to ourselves. So this is some server created by other person, POCFS, right? We can create as many instances we want, right? So we want to create an EC2 instance for our web application hosting, right? So that's why we are going to click on launch instance, right? To create an EC2 instance, right? And we need to write some meaningful name here, right? For our web server, or we can see EC2 instance. We can say, first of all, what is the naming convention we followed to name any web service on AWS?
We have to use the camel notation.
Yes, camel notation, and you have to write
So
the project name first, right? So write the project name. In this project name, we have a DevOps training. Our project name
project,
is DevOps
then the
training, and after
environment,
that you have to write environment, dev environment, and after that write service name.
service.
And we are going to create an Amazon Linux instance, right, for this demo. And here is an AMI. AMI is basically, you already know, you have to select the operating system, right? Which type of operating system you want, if you want an Ubuntu, Windows, or something like that, right? For this demo, we are going to use the Amazon Linux instance. And this is the instance type. We need to select like how many memory, how many processor we need for it, right? And this is our key pair, which is actually used to, which are actually used to assess our
Connect the,
EC2 instance. Yeah,
uh,
connect or
got it.
access our EC2 instance, right? So
Right.
currently I am going to proceed without a key pair because we make the EC2 instance for the deployment, right? Not for the connection. and and before the creating the EC2 instance, you need to create a VPC, right? So we already know how to create a VPC. Currently, there is how many VPCs in this account? I have 5 VPCs in this account. So for this demo, I am going to use this VPC test RFPF VPC, right? So let's select this VPC, and after that you need to select a subnet, right? If you remember what is a subnet, there are two type of subnet, one is private and one is public. And if I want to create a public EC2 instance, then I have to put my EC2 instance at what subnet?
Mm,
Could you please
right.
tell me? If I want to create a public EC2 instance, public server, then I have to put my EC2 instance at what subnet?
Um, I don't remember exactly.
So basically, whenever we want
Pub
to make a
private,
public,
right? Or public
no,
would be under
whenever,
public.
yes, public must be in public. So we need to select a public subnet, right? Because we want a public EC2 instance, right? So
Right.
I am selecting the public subnet. And after that, you have auto sign public IP means whenever you want to create a public instance, you have to assign the public IP, right? And after that, we have security group. Security group just like a firewall that control your incoming and outgoing traffic, right? For this demo, we are going to use all traffic, right? Everyone can comes and connect with this EC2 instance, right? And after that, we need to select some hard drive storage for it. So 8 GB is maximum because our application code is not very maximum. It is a simple static website, right? So after that, just clicking on launch instance, right? So after clicking on launch, our EC2 instances are going to be created, right?
Right.
So let's wait for it. Once it created, yeah. So now our EC2 instance are created, right? So if I am going to my this, so we created the EC2 instance, we completed this step. and we created the GitHub repository and push our application code in it, right? So we completed these two steps, right?
Mhm.
Now we have to create a pipeline, right? In which we are going to add this repo, and for the deployment we add this EC2 instance, right? So before creating a pipeline, we need to create some IAM roles, right? And what is the
Yes.
purpose of creating a IAM roles? So basically, if you can see this diagram, so our code is going to be deployed in that instance, right? This EC2 instance, right? And this EC2 instance are going to
Mm.
be used or deploy the AWS service whose name is AWS Code Deploy, right? So AWS Code Deploy is a service that provides us the facility to deploy our code into the some EC2 server, right?
Right.
So before creating the AWS Code Deploy, we need to create some roles, right? Roles is basically a set of permission which you attach with your some AWS service to give the some other service permission, right? So
Yep.
our EC2 instance want the permission of AWS code deploy, right? So we need to create a IAM role for it, right? So how we can create a role? We need to go add word service. Could you please tell me?
IAM,
Yes, IAM,
that
right?
identity center thing.
So after going to the IAM, and after that, what we need to select here?
Roles.
Yes, IAM. After going to the IAMs, you go to the roles, and we are going to create a new role for our EC2 instance, and in which we give the permission for the AWS code deploy, right? So he says you want to a role for the AWS service. So what service we want to create a role for it? EC2, right? And after that, go to the next. And now you have to tag the policy like what type of the permission you want to give your EC2, right? So we
Mhm.
want to give the two type of the permission to our EC2 instance, right? First of all, we want to give him the permission of our code deploy, right? So for this, we have a permission with the name of Amazon EC2 role for AWS code deploy, right? So this one, first one, right? So we are going to attach this policy, and after that we need to select another policy with the name of Amazon SSM, right? And SSM manage instance code policy. Let's like where is this? Yeah, this one, right? So this basically two policies are give my EC2 permission to access the AWS code deploy, right? So currently we are not making any AWS code deploy. We are going to deploy after this step, right? So first of
Mhm.
all, we need to create a role for our EC2 instance. And after that, you have to give some meaningful name to this role. So DevOps training, and this is our EC2. We created the role for our EC2 instance. Sorry, first of all, write the dev. And now what is the purpose of creating this role? So we basically created this role for our EC2 instance, right? So write
Right.
the EC2 instance role, right? So
Right.
basically this role gives the permission on your behalf, means this role gives the EC2 permission of AWS code deploy, right? If you remember this policy are going to. So just click on create role, and yeah, this role are created
Mm.
successfully. Now go to the
Sabi?
EC2
Yeah.
instance, go to the EC2 instance,
I don't know.
and you need to attach this role which you created earlier with the name,
Dito mas
Rafi,
kaman.
can you hear me?
Dito mas kaman. Yeah, just chapel dito. Sorry, Zain, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Okay, so basically I'm telling you, our role is created,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yes.
Now we need to attach this role with our EC2 instance, right? So how we can attach it? So first of all, we need to select this instance, right? And after the selecting, we go to the actions, and in actions, here is a tab with the name of security, right? And in security, you see the third option, modify IAM role. Just click on it and refresh it, and you need to attach your role here, right? And what is the name of your role which you currently make? DevOps training, Dev EC2 install. So search for it, DevOps training, this one, right? So just need to select this role, DevOps training, Dev
So
EC2
did
install.
we with that role, did you already give the policies and permissions attached
Yes,
to that role
yes.
already?
Yes, we whenever we create the role, we attach the policies with it, right? If you remember, we attach the two policies with our this role. One is giving the permission of code deploy, and one is SSM agent, which is compulsory if we can use the this institution with our AWS code deploy, right? So that's why we are give permission to this role, and after giving the permission to this role, we need to attach this role with our EC2 instance, right? So that's how we are going to do. So basically, we're going to EC2 instance and click on modify IAM role, and we are going to attach this role with our this instance, right? Which is our DevOps training dev EC2 instance. So just click on update IAM role. So this EC2 instance are going to be attached with this role, right? Or we can say this role are automatically or successfully attached with this instance, right? So after attaching the role, we need to create another service, which is really important service, code deploy service, right? So let's search for this service on search bar, code deploy here, right? So basically, this is the service that provide us the facility to deploy our code in some server, right? So we have to make this service before using it. So first of all, before that creating the deployment, you have to create an application, right? Which is really, really important part. So click on create application. Application creation means at where you want to deploy your code. If you remember, we want to deploy our code on
Mm.
EC2 instance, right? So
Yeah.
that's how that's what we going to be make. So click on create application and write some meaningful application name, right? This is our DevOps training dev application EC2, right? So compute platform, where you want to deploy your code. So could you please tell me in which option I have to select? I want to deploy my code at where?
The Amazon ECS. Oh,
No,
wait.
EC is a different EC2, right? So it gives you permission if you want to create a if you want
Oh,
to
yeah.
deploy your code on premises or EC2, right? So we need to deploy our code on EC2, right? So we need to select the first one option, right? So after that, just click on create application, right?
Yeah.
And after creating an application, we need to create a deployment group, right? In deployment group, we are going to select our EC2 instance which we created earlier, right? To attach with this deploy agent. So just click on deployment group. Now you have to enter this meaningful name for your deployment group name, right? So I am going to write it DevOps training dev deploy code, right? And we need to attach a role, a new role with our AWS code deploy. Why? So basically, this role giving the permission or grant the AWS code deploy permission to access your target instances, right? If we don't attach this role with this AWS code deployment group, then we are unable to access our EC2 instance through code deploy, right? So we need to create another role to attach this role with this service, right? So we have to go again this IAM, and after that we are going to go to this roles, and we need to create a new role, right? So click on create role, and now we are going to create a role for what service? Come on.
Um, it would be
previously we created the role for EC2. Now we are created the role for the which service?
Deploy, deploy,
Core deploy. Yeah.
deployment.
So we need to search for a core deploy service, like this one, second one. And after that, just go to next. Yeah, so it automatically tags this policy AWS core deploy role policy, right? Which enable
Really?
our AWS core
দুইটাই
deploy
দুইটাই
to access our EC2 instance.
Mm-hmm.
So we are going to tag this policy, go to next and give some meaningful name like this is our DevOps training dev and what policy is core deploy
Code deploy.
role. Okay. After that, we just need to create role and let's wait for it as it is created. Now go to your deployment group and now we have to search here, right? So let's refresh this. And give the deployment group name again, DevOps training, and after the dev, and this is deploy. And now select your role, service role which you created earlier. So this is our core role, DevOps training, dev code deploy role, right? And now he's asking which type of the deployment you want to make, right? So it gives us the two type of the deployment in place and blue and green. So always remember that whenever your code are going to deploy into this AWS code deploy service, it offers you two types. One is in place and one is blue green. So what is the difference between them? Whenever if we use the in-place deployment, then what he do, whenever this we make some changes in our code, it automatically replace our previous server with the new one, right? And in place we may face the downtime, right? But in blue and green, it use the two instances, or we can say the two servers. One for your previous deployment, and the second server is for your new deployment, right? So once
Mm-hmm.
your new deployment successfully completed, then it automatically reduce the instance size or shut down your previous server, right? But in place we have only one server, so whenever we make some changes on our code, it automatically deploy into that server and the previous deployment are automatically refurbished, or we can say the removed, right? So for this demo, we are going to use the in place. We use the blue and green for only for production code, right? So we can use the in place here for this demo. For this environment configuration, we need to select what type of instance. So we are creating the Amazon EC2 instance for our deployment. Now you have to select your EC2 instance which you created earlier for your deployment, right? So we need in the key, we need to select a name and what is the name of our EC2 instance which we created earlier. If you can see the option,
The
we
DevOps
have to,
training dev EC2
yes,
instance.
we need to select this option, right? And after that, he's asking that install the AWS core deploy agent. I don't want to install it again. It automatically installs. So first of all, you need to select the core deploy all at once. So there are different type of deployment configuration. All at once means uh, whenever you make some change in the code, it automatically deploy in a single, or we can say very fastly and may be faced with downtime for all at once, right? If we select the one at a time, so it going to be deploy our code in some batches, like in some concurrent ways. And if we can select the half at a time, so first of all, it's going to deploy 50% of our code, then going to deploy other 50%, right? But if we select the all at once, then it's going to be deploy 100% of our code into the EC2 server, right? So we are going to go with a for deploy default all at once. So whenever we make changes, it's going to be reflect into that EC2 instance with all at once means our 100% of the code are going to be deployed here, right? I don't want to use the load balancer, so I just uncheck it and there's no one other option to select. just click on create deployment group, right? So basically we are successfully created the AWS core deploy service, which is required to deploy our application, right? Now if I am going to my diagram again, so I created the GitHub repository and push our code. Then we created the EC2 instance for the deployment of our code, and then we create the AWS core deploy service to deploy our code into that EC2 instance, right?
Mm-hmm.
So after creating these services, now we are going to create a AWS pipeline, right? So how we can create a pipeline? If you remember, we need to go a pipeline service, right? Go to the search bar and search for the code pipeline service. Now you can tell me how I can create a pipeline. So first of all, where I have to go?
Great pipeline.
Yeah, create pipeline. And
Dan,
which
can you hold
option
on one
I?
second? I'm so,
Oh, okay.
I need to get
Okay.
the cup of tea. I'm so tired. Hold on one second.
Okay.
One second. Hey, Zain.
Yeah, are you coming back?
Yeah, sorry about that. Yes, I'm back.
Okay. Okay, so basically we are created a pipeline, and could you please tell me that what type of the pipeline we need to make building a custom pipeline or create a pipeline from template?
From template.
No, custom pipeline because we want to create a pipeline according to myself, right? According to my own requirement. And after that, you need to write some meaningful name for your pipeline. So write the DevOps training, right? And dev and for pipeline, right? After that,
Mhm.
you need to select the execution mode. We are going to go with the queue mode. Queue mode means one by one. First of all, our source stage are run, then deploy stage, right? And it automatically create a new service roles for us. We don't need to create by our own, and just go to next. And here the important is you need to select your source stage, and at source stage what we need to select here.
Can you click the drop down?
Yes.
EC2 instance, Amazon.
No, for a source stage.
Oh, wait, with source, it will be the GitHub. Sir,
Yes, GitHub, yeah,
yeah, that
GitHub
one.
app. Now we need to attach or connect this our GitHub repository with this source stage, right? So how we can do it, if you remember,
Connect to
we
GitHub.
click on this
Web
connect to
app.
GitHub. And after connect to GitHub,
It's going to take
it's
you to your
going to
GitHub
make
account.
a connection. So first of all, we give some meaningful name to this connection. So DevOps training dev connection. After that, connect to GitHub. Now we're going to move forward to my GitHub account.
Right now, we're basically looking what we're doing. The whole process that we're doing is basically we're pushing our code in GitHub and deploying it to the Amazon EC2 instance so that our
Yes,
code goes to the
yes,
server.
and we are create and we want these stages automatically, means that's why we are getting a pipeline for it, right? So pipeline give us the opportunity to provide us the facility to deploy and fetch source or fetch your code automatically without any manual effort, right? So we are
Yeah.
going to test it once we create it, right? So just click on install a new app to attach your GitHub repository with this connection. So I am going to select my Zain M398, and you need to write the password of your GitHub. Go confirm. Now go to your repository and just sorry, I want to just just close this again, click on connect to GitHub. Connect to GitHub. We go there.
Code deploy. Shake the CQ करते हुए.
Okay, go to configure then and redline it. And after that, you need to select either you want to access this source stage to all repository or selected
Code push
repository.
करते.
If you
Uh,
want, yeah.
it should be only select repositories, right?
Okay, if you want to
And
give
then we have
only your DevOps Rafi repository access to this pipeline, you can do this, right? So DevOps
right.
Rafi training and just click on save, right? So now our source stage are successfully, just click on connect. Yeah. So our connection are established. Now look for your repository, which is DevOps Rapid Training. And we need to select the branch here. If you remember, where we push our code at what branch? At dev branch, right? If you remember that here is my DevOps Rapid Training repository, right? And this is my dev branch and this is my application code, right? So we need to select accordingly here, right? So we need to select the dev branch. And after that, we need to go to the next. I am not going to use any build or test our code, skip build stage. Now this is our deploy stage in which our going to select the deploy provider. Deploy provider means at what service provide you facility of deployment. So we are using the AWS code deploy, right? So that's why we make the deployment group and application earlier, if you remember, in AWS code deploy. And we want to deploy this in North Virginia region. And if you remember, we already make the application, right? So we need to select our application name, and we also already make the deployment group. We just need to select the name of deployment group and go to next. And this is our whole pipeline that are going to be created. Just click on create pipeline. Now wait for it. Our pipeline are going to be created. Yeah. So first of all, our source stage are going to be done. In our source stage, basically it fetch our code from our GitHub repository, right? And once it fetch our code from the GitHub repository, it's going to be deploy our code into the GitHub repository. Oh, sorry, in EC2 instance, right? So it successfully fetch our code from GitHub. Now it deploy our code into the EC2 instance. So if you go to the input, he says your code are deployed and deploy in the EC2 instance. Now wait for the execution. Once our code are deployed into the EC2 instance, we can verify it by going to the EC2 instance and paste the public IP into our browser to check our code are deployed or not, right? So basically this deploy, yes, it says successful. Successful means our code successfully deploy into the EC2 instance, right? So how we can verify it, our code is deployed or not? So you have to go the EC2 instance, right? So go to this EC2 instance and just copy this public IP, right? Because our EC2 instance are public, that means our EC2 instance are accessible through internet, right? So just
Yes.
copy this and paste it here, right? Yeah. So here is our application code is now on AWS EC2 instance, right? And we use the AWS code deploy agent for this service, right? So this is our static website which we hosted successfully on AWS by using the AWS code pipeline, right? Now let's make some changes in it, right? Let's suppose this I want to make changes in this application code, so I have to go my this is my application code, right, which is located at my local, right? So I want to make changes in the index file, right? So just click add it with Notepad.
1 second, Zain.
Yeah,
How much longer is our class going to be?
just 5 to 10 minutes.
Okay, let's continue.
Okay. So basically, I want to make some changes in my code to test our pipeline is automatically triggered and then automatically deployed on EC2 instance or not, right? So
Yep.
when our application code is in local, right? So we just need to make some changes and push our code into GitHub repository. That's all we can do, right? And our automatically code are fetched and deployed into the EC2 instance by using the AWS code pipeline, right? So let's suppose I want to edit this index.html file, and instead of congratulations, I want to write anything else. Can you tell me that what you want to write in your web? website page. Currently, this website show the congratulation. I want to show anything else, right? So
Hello
can you
world,
tell me any
exclamation
word?
mark.
So can you tell me any word? Which type of
Hello,
heading you?
hello
Hello.
world, exclamation mark.
Okay. Hello world exclamation marks, right?
Yep.
So after just you need to save this file, and after saving the file, now this file is saving in my GitHub repository. We need to push our code in our what repository, the repository which is located on GitHub account, right? So because we
Mm-hmm.
will make the changes on local, right? We need to push our changes into the GitHub repository. So first of all, we need to write a git add command and then git commit command, and git commit you can write the message we change the heading of our website, right, and you just need to click on git push now. This is the only thing you have to do. Our code is going to be automatically fetched if I am going to my code pipeline again. So just refresh it. So now here you can see it automatically triggered, right? So just wait. So our pipeline automatically triggered and it automatically fetch our code just now. And now it automatically deploy our code into the EC2 instance without any manual intervention, right? Without
Where
any
did we
manual
make the
effort.
changes to the code? Show me the environment where we're making the writing the code actually. Can you go back to that page one more time?
Okay, let me go to my this is my code. So this is the code which we had changes, right? And we just need write the changes of hello world, right? And after making the changes, we only created push this code into our GitHub repository, and this source
Okay, so
stage
basically
automatic.
that Notepad++
Yeah.
is linked to our
No,
GitHub.
no, 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 not your notepad. We can edit this file in any editor. This
Oh,
file.
we're just taking the file from our local
We just
device.
no, we just edit this file, and after editing, we need to push this file into our GitHub repository, right? And once we push our GitHub repository, our efforts finish. Now, this source stage automatically fetch our code from our GitHub repository, right? And once it fetch our GitHub repository code, it automatically going to be deployed into the Git on EC2 instance. Now, if you refresh this page, you can easily see your changes here, right? Hello world. Let's do this again, right? So if I want to change the color of the background, right? So just open the syntax or any editor. You can edit this file in any editor, right? So let's suppose I want to edit with simple notepad. I don't see any option of notepad. So click on edit with notepad plus plus. Or maybe you can edit this file using the Visual Studio Code editor, right? So let's go to cmd or right. So I just open this repository in the Visual Studio Code editor, right? And now I want to make changes in index.html file, right? So I want to change the color of my background, right? So currently I selected the blue color, right? I want a different color. Let's suppose I want to make it red color, right? So I just selected red and make another changes, right? If I want to add another heading, let's suppose. So this is the front page, this is the HTML, right? Which is used for creating the front end of the application. I want to write hello Rafi, right? So I make the two changes in my code. Once I added another heading and I added and I change my background color with the red, right? So after
Yep.
that, you just need to push your changes into your GitHub repository, right?
Ah,
That's the whole thing we need to do, right? So how we can push our code into GitHub repository? We just need to write git add, and after that git commit, and in commit you can write change the
this entire flow
background.
is the CDCI pipeline, basically, right? Essentially, what we
Yes,
did is that we basically, we're writing code in our local machine. We're editing the code in our
yes,
where we have the files for the code.
yes,
We then hook that up the other class to our GitHub account. right? So we
Yes.
curated the, I guess, the continuous integration part of the pipeline.
Yes.
And then
And also
now we
the
set up our
continuous deployment.
EC2 instance on Amazon Web Services. And then we
Yes.
basically connected that with our GitHub. So that's the continuous deployment side of it. So that anytime we make any kind of changes to our code on our local machine,
Yes.
it automatically pushes that code out to our repository in GitHub, which then automatically pushes that code out to our EC2
No, we
instance.
need to push our code by ourselves into GitHub repository. And once it push, then this pipeline automatically fetch this code from your GitHub repository. And after the fetching, it going to be deploy your code into your EC2 instance, right? So we
The
don't
only
need
thing
to
we
make
have to
any
do
manual effort.
is basically use that git add, git commit, and git push code
Yes,
in
yes.
our
We just need to make changes in our code, and we after making changes, we just need to push our code into repository. That's our words end, right? And this pipeline automatically triggered and fetching our code. And after fetching the code, it use the AWS deploy service to deploy our code into the EC2 instance, right? Which we created
Mhm.
earlier. Because if we want to host our website into somewhere, so we use the EC2 instance. So our currently website hosting in this server, right, which is 4421. So basically, this is the public IP port of that server, which we can access it, right? So you can also access this server or access this website by using this TLS. If you can write 44.211 in your web browser, you can also access it. Come on, write
So
it here.
so
44.
this
Could you please write this IP in your machine in your web browser and press enter? 44211198.140.
hold on one second.
So currently we are making some changes. Let's refresh it. So if you can see our background color are now be red and hello Rafi heading is automatically. Perfect. So that's the power of using the AWS code pipeline, right? In which
Mhm.
we automatically just pushes our code and our code automatically fetched by source stage and automatically deploy to the EC2 instance and then our website and we can access our website with the changes that we made, right? So there is no manual effort involved in it, right? I don't need to go my EC2 instance and write the files here, not write any codes here, right? So that's the power of using the code pipeline to automatically fetch and automatically deploy your changes into the some server, right? So
Mhm.
that's why we're using the AWS code pipeline. Are you able to sense this?
Yeah, yeah, accessed it. Yes, I can see it.
Yeah. So if you want to verify it again, so you can make any type of the changes again in this file and you can verify it. So let's make another change. Let's suppose now I want to so let's suppose I want to change color again. Now make it, let's suppose green, right? And I want a font size of, let's suppose 2030 px, right?
Mhm.
And let's suppose instead of hello world, write the application word here, right? Application. And instead of hello Rafi, I also write hello Rafi and send, right? So after making the changes in your local, you need to push these changes into the GitHub repository. How we can do it is write git add dot. And once we push changes into the GitHub repository, our pipeline automatically triggered, right? Git commit, add, git push. And after the pushing the code, now go to your AWS pipeline. This is our pipeline. Here
You gotta
you can see it
refresh.
automatically fetches our code. So whenever we make the changes and push our code, this sort stage automatically trigger. And now
Okay,
it
okay.
fetch,
Where did you see that
yeah.
it fetched? What indicates that?
So here you can see this source stage are attached with our GitHub repository with the
Does it
name
have a
of DevOps Craft
timestamp or
Training.
anything to show
Yeah,
you that it
so
just fetched code a few seconds ago or what?
yeah, yeah, so you can see here just now, right? So just now means it fetch your code. Just now means very rare, right? Means and whenever you make a changes and push it here, this source pipeline are firstly in the blue stage, in progress stage, and when it's successfully deployed, it's going to be in green state. Here you can see now is in green state. Means our code is deployed successfully. If you can refresh it, you can see your changes here, right? So that's how these things work, right? So whenever you make the changes in your local, you just need to push into the GitHub repository. So basically our GitHub repository are attached with this source stage, right? And this source stage is a pipeline, and this source stage automatically triggered or automatically fetch our code. And it fetch our code basically on the basis of pushing, right? So basically, whenever we make some changes or push our changes into the GitHub repository, this source stage automatically trigger. So basically, it trigger on the behalf of pushing, right? So whenever
Mhm.
we make or push some changes in the code, it automatically triggered by source stage and fetch this code. And once it fetched successfully, it succeeded, right? And after succeeded, it gives our code to the next stage, which is the deploy stage, and this deploy stage are basically deploy our code into the EC2 instance, right? And after the deployment is successful, we are able to assess our application in this stage, right? Which is
Mhm.
our EC2 instance public IP. And you can convert this EC2 public IP or resolve this public IP into some meaningful DNS. For example, your DNS.com means, let's suppose my website.com, something else, right? So that's how the things work.
Yeah, you didn't just transfer it from a local. Is no, it's not local.
Look,
This is public, right?
this is the cloud server public IP in which
So
your
you can then
website is
transfer this
hosted.
over to the to your
Yes,
domain.
you can transfer into your domain, right? Right. Because every application you see on the internet, let's go the Facebook, right? So this is the basically DNS name of the Facebook, but in the backend they uses the server for hosting the application. And
Mm.
then there's and hosting the application, they have some IPs in which their application are running, but they resolve into the some DNS, right? So we can also make these things for our EC2 instance same as it is, right?
Mm.
So for this we need a domain. Currently we don't have a domain, so we need to purchase a domain for it. And after purchasing a domain, we just need to write this public IP into the some domain, right? So then we are able to access our application with the DNS, right? So that's how the AWS core pipeline are basically working, right? So,
Right.
Rafi, in our next lecture, we are going to properly discuss about your job or